everything, social life was centred around church, because there wasn't much else in Westport. There were pictures, 2 cinemas, and went to see the first rock and roll film in West Horton, actually, at the Empire. Bill Haley and Rock Around the Clock, yeah. People were dancing in the aisles, you know, unheard of in West Horton in the 50s. Gracious. Yeah, it's a good job my mum and dad didn't know. No, and then I came, of course, to work in the library and started to socialise with all the girls who worked here. And we went dancing, obviously, at the Palais and the Nevada. It had all been jiving, wouldn't it? And Twist came in as well, yeah. I had an American pen friend who used to send me their version of Girl magazine, American Girl, and you got all these teenage idols in there, you know, they all had the quiffs, nicely dressed, the white shirt and the tie and suit, yeah. When we went to the Palais, halfway through the night, we would get a pass to go out and we'd nip to a pub on just opposite. I think it was called the Founders. So we would go and have a gin and tonic in there and smoke our Peter Stuyvesants. And then we would nip back again, you see. And then we went to the Beachcomber, of course, as well. That was a big place in Bolton then for teenagers to go, and that's where I met my husband, in the Beachcomber, with Herman and his Hermits were on at the time, and they had a hit. It was I'm Into Something Good, so I think we thought that we were into something good, you see, when we met up. Although I don't know why, because you couldn't see anything. It was like the black hole of Calcutta, really. It was so dark, you could have been dancing with somebody, and it could have been Al Capone or anybody, you know, not a clue till you got them out in the daylight, what they look like.
I mean, 70s, it's funny because it's back in again now, it's bang on trend. I even saw a woman with a feather cut the other day. You know, we used to have, obviously, the really wide trousers and platform shoes, ridiculously high platform shoes. I couldn't walk in them now, never mind dancing them, but I did. The trousers and the skirts are all miles too long, but that's because you have platforms on with the heel like that and a platform like that. So obviously you had to have everything longer to accommodate the shoes, otherwise it'd look ridiculous. And we went to see loads of bands at the Nevada, because there were bands every Saturday. I know we saw Robert Knight, who got a number 1, and because the guy who owned the Nevada, he was very, very good, I think, at tying people into a contract. So it meant that when he got number 1, the BBC had to come to the Nevada to film it, and that was quite amusing, really, because there were lots of girls who were crowding the front of the stage and fainting, but quite exciting as well, you know, for the BBC to be in Bolton filming. The other music that I really liked was Motown, and we used to make these step dances up in Shirley's front room, and then go to the Nevada and we'd do the step dance, and we used to stay at the back of the, you know, it was quite a big hall, and we'd stay at the back and the stage would be at the other end. And then we'd sort of do that, and then we knew it was a good dance if it made its way through to the stage, you know, to the front. So we'd walk round and see if anybody was doing our step dance, and occasionally we'd find somebody. Oh, look! Mud, I went to see them more than once, but on the 27th of October, this is in 1973, I said, Mud, as you can see from the star rating, was superb as usual. And then I go on to say, Karen and Sue met someone last night. Shirley McCoy's going out with someone called Peter Henderson, so everyone's fixed up. See, that was me. I was the gooseberry again. Whilst we were at the Nav, there was a couple in the corner. Gosh, you should have seen them. No. Some people, you know, should have got a room, but someone pushed a lad through the window at the front, so obviously there was a bit of argy-bargy going on that night. I wore my maxi, and although it looks good, it's hopeless to dancing. Steve says he likes Shirley MacQuire best, then Shirley Mills, then Shirley Mack, because she laughs and smiles a lot. So, yeah, so a lot of it features boys, but not all together.
We'd go to Blighty's sometimes because it's all-nighter. Pele Nocturne every Sundays without fail, and sometimes on a Friday or a Saturday. But it wasn't very dear at the time. If you had £3-4, you've got all night. It's like you got £300, and you were good. Then I joined a group called Funk Junction. And we went all over Northwest, down south, all the army camps, Air Force camps, and we really enjoyed ourselves. We came back, we had a show at Blighty's in Farnworth, and we won the competition. So we were mentioned on radio loads of times, and we got more gigs all over. But we found out the agent was making more money than giving it us. And what we got was, at the time, £40 a piece, which was, my wages were like 20 quid, £25, and this was like double. And it's like you go for half an hour and then you go for 45 minutes. And it was good. But by then, when we started getting mentioned our name, agency called Cream Agency got in touch with Ian, because he was the main man, and we had to join as a semi-professional, leave our jobs and go Shetland Islands, which few people was not agreed to do that, which I think everybody disagreed. So then the band split up. People used to follow me because they didn't know where to go, yeah, and how to dance, which club to go to, which is safe. And I used to tell them, I'll go to such a place and I'll be there. That was one of the places, Wigan Casino, Blighty's in Farnworth. At that time, they were the main places. I think people still know the name. Yeah, what they call now, Northern Soul. Oh, they were good. People used to come with their bags, and I was wondering, says to me, mate Jingo, how come they've come with towels and clothes and whatever? Because when they kept on dancing, they used to sweat a lot. So they changed, yeah. But I couldn't stay till in the morning. So we used to come home like 2:30, but it was really, really good. And there were no prejudice there at all. I was surprised, really surprised. In Bolton, wherever you go, you had trouble all the time, somebody calling you. Wigan, nobody called you. At that time, I don't know now.
You need to get a good job, you need to go into engineering, or you need to be an apprentice, and you need to do this and that. I was like, I don't want to do that, I just want to go and follow punk. I was 14, so I wasn't sure whether I was going to get in. We'd heard about this band on the grapevine, and most of the people that were in the venue were there to watch this rock band that was playing later that night. So Buzzcocks was like an unknown entity, really. And Buzzcocks came on stage, and they were just like, wow, they just stood out like a sore thumb. But there was just something electric about it, and it was really, really exciting. They got to play, I think, just over 2.5 songs, and those songs were cover versions. Everyone just hated them. So the organiser of the event just basically said, that's it, cut. And they just turned the power off, and that was the end of Buzzcocks. But that was their debut gig. It was the first ever punk gig, probably in Bolton. And I was just blown away, just at how good they were. And that took me straight into punk. Initially, when it started off, it was very underground. When you went out there as a punk, or people knew that you're into punk, there were a lot of people out on the streets that really, really didn't like you. It was controversial. It offended people. You'd have, other youth cultures, and there was often quite a lot of conflict. That used to be Alien. I think it opened in 1978 from memory, and it was well known for selling like punk rock and kind of youth culture clothing. But the main record shop that we used to go to was on the corner over there, and it was called Derek Guest's. In the time from work, going to the market hall, get myself a load of pasties for my lunch, and if I had any cash, it'd be either into Derek Guest Records to buy latest punk singles or whatever, and then if I had any, enough money, I'd go into Alien, just over here, and just buy punk clothes, or bondage trousers, or something else that would upset my mum and dad. I got into the new romantic scene. I think I was 17. I was aware of Gary Newman, for example, from his work with Tube Army, and Gary very quickly saw that punk was, it was a short-term, short-term scene, certainly for him as a musician. So he started to get into this electronic music. I just loved the look. It was different, very much like punk. This guy on top of the pops, very alien looking, completely different to what any other band was doing. And I thought, I really like this. Very futuristic, which I liked. He was brave enough to go out in this image that in a way offended people, for some. For others, they were kind of taken aback. I think they were a little bit wary of it because it was just so unusual at the time. You still got the same level of abuse at times from people, just for looking different, just purely because they didn't understand it. But I just loved it. I just thought it was a fantastic scene.
The punk thing was not really my scene as such, but it was integrated with reggae because of the Sex Pistols and the punk rock, and I mean even Bob Marley did a punk rock jamming. It was more acceptable to play punk than it was reggae, so you would jump in and play a bit of both so you could be more accepted. But so the reggae vibe was from, like I said, it was throughout the 80s, 70s, 90s. My first sort of insight into DJing was at the old fire station, which was called St Dominic's, which was the 70s. St Dominic's was where the old fire station is, Marsden Road, and opposite was Nevada skating rink. So we sort of worked together on Nevada. So that's my first experience of DJing. A group of us, and we set up like a DJ system back in back in the 70s, 80s. There was like sound systems. So we tried and form one, and the Buzzing was one of those places which was a sort of place where you could go and not have to get dressed up, and it was a lot easier in the 70s to get into that kind of club, where some clubs you weren't going to get in as a black guy. It was virtually impossible to get in. We was into the sort of reggae and soul and all that, and but Buzzing was just like a place where you could go and chill out, and then from the Buzzing. We used to go to the West Indian Centre, which we used to be on Queen's Park, first of all. So that was where this first experience the West Indian community. But the best part of that was when it went to Johnson Street, which was in the town centre. And we sort of formed a group and end up DJing, joining the committee. But with the West Indian community, it's always the elders that took the sort of deciding what was going on. So we had to wait for them to let us in as such. One of the most famous one would be Funky Monkey, which was created in the West Indian Centre, and that was one of the nights where you couldn't get in. It was packed to the rim, you couldn't get in. And they sort of did that for about 3-4 years, and it was well known, the Funky Monkey, when it was on. I think they did it once a month, and it was a very sought after venue. So like in the 70s, we weren't allowed to go into clubs as a group. You wouldn't get in anywhere in Bolton. There was usually a creative lot of excuses why you couldn't get in. You had to get in via the doorman, and there weren't many. In fact, I don't think there was any black doorman, as far as then. So it was just a matter of having somewhere to go where it was, pretty cool, pretty peaceful, and lack of hassle, you know. So that's what we created the West Indian Centre, and the community there was like that, you know, for the young people, which in the 70s, 80s I was one of those. So we had to create our own environment, you know.
I think it was a much simpler world than after the war, you know, sort of people didn't have much money, so you couldn't be indulged, you know. You know, people have a lot more now. It's not a worse world, it's just a different world, isn't it, you know.
I think there's more pressure though on teenagers today because there's more social media particularly. It's 24/7 now. You don't get bullied. You never got bullied 24/7 when I was a teenager because you could go home and switch off. Where now, a lot of kids just never get that, do they? It's like constant.
Yeah, I think people are much more accepting now than they ever were back in my day. I certainly don't think it's anything like it was back in the punk days. That was very dangerous. You know, you would get beaten up just for looking different. I don't think without punk, you know, and certainly the subcultures that I got into thereafter, I don't think that without them I'd be the person that I am today.
I still enjoy doing music. I've still got equipment here at the back. As soon as if I get another gig, I would love to go and do it.